My name is Emma Carter, and I'm 27 years old. I live in London, England, and I work as a digital marketer for a lifestyle brand. Social media is a big part of my daily life. I spend hours creating perfect posts, choosing the right words, and deciding which moments look good enough to share. Ironically, I never realized I was doing the same thing in my personal life too, posting smiles while hiding pain. This story isn't about a fairy tale romance or some magical reunion. It's about what happens when love ends, but your curiosity doesn't. It's about checking your ex's social media every single day, waiting to find meaning in every post and caption. It's about me sitting in my flat, convincing myself that I can handle the truth, even when I already know that every time I check, I'll only end up hurting myself more. It's strange how something so harmless, just opening an app, can ruin an entire day. 2 months ago, I would have laughed if someone told me that Instagram could break my heart. But now, here I am, lying in bed past midnight, staring at my ex-boyfriend's profile picture as if it holds some secret I haven't yet uncovered. His name is Tom. It's been 63 days since we ended things, but my heart still refuses to accept it. Our breakup wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no crying, just two exhausted people finally admitting what they'd both been avoiding. I still remember his words clearly. "I think we've both known for a while this isn't working, Emma." I nodded like I agreed, but inside, I was screaming. After he left, I promised myself I'd be strong. I deleted his number and even removed our photos, but I didn't delete the habit that was slowly destroying me, checking on him. Every morning before brushing my teeth, I'd open Instagram and type his name into the search bar. Every night before going to sleep, I'd do the same. It became an addiction. If he didn't post anything, I'd feel anxious. If he did, especially if he looked happy, my heart would sink. One weekend, he posted a photo at a cafe in Shoreditch, sunlight hitting his face perfectly. The caption said, "Good things take time." I stared at it for 10 long minutes. Was he talking about himself? About us? About someone new? Then I saw her, a girl who commented with a sunflower emoji and a heart. My stomach dropped. I clicked on her profile. It was public. She was blonde, pretty, the kind of girl who looks effortlessly confident. I scrolled through her photos, searching for clues, and then I saw it. A picture of her coat draped over the same chair I'd seen in Tom's post. That was all the confirmation I needed to spiral. My mind created stories faster than my heart could handle. Maybe they were dating. Maybe she was the reason he left. My hands started shaking as I locked my phone. I sat there in the dark, tears rolling down my face, whispering to myself, "Stop it, Emma. Just stop." But I didn't. I couldn't. Every night after that, I checked again, hoping to find something that would make me feel better, but always finding something that made me feel worse. The next week, I met my best friend Hannah for coffee near King's Cross. She noticed how quiet I was and asked, "You've been checking again, haven't you?" I nodded, embarrassed. She sighed. "Emma, you can't heal if you keep watching him live his life. Every time you check, you're reopening a wound." I told her, "I just want to know if he's okay." She looked at me and said, "No. You want him to be miserable without you. That's why it hurts." Her words stung, but they were true. That night, I decided to take control. I opened Instagram, stared at his profile picture for one last time, and moved the app into a folder named "Don't You Dare." I told myself I wouldn't look again. It lasted less than a day. The next morning, curiosity whispered in my ear, just one quick check. My fingers obeyed before my brain could protest. That was the moment I realized heartbreak doesn't end when love ends. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing how much of my life I was wasting on someone who wasn't even thinking about me. I'd scroll during lunch, before meetings, even on the bus. It wasn't love anymore. It was obsession wearing the mask of nostalgia. And each time I saw him laughing in a story, it felt like I'd been punched. My heart would drop, and I'd spend hours replaying that one clip as if decoding his happiness would somehow fix my pain. One night, London rain painted silver streaks on my window. I wrapped myself in a blanket and scrolled through our old pictures, the museums, the lazy Sundays, the way he looked at me when he laughed. Then I saw his new story. He was at a concert, the same artist we both loved. My breath caught in my throat. That used to be our thing. Seeing him there without me felt like losing a piece of my soul. I cried until my pillow was soaked. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. Puffy eyes, tired face. But something in me had changed. I realized I couldn't keep doing this to myself. I was living through someone else's timeline and ignoring my own. I was measuring my healing against someone else's highlight reel. So I opened Instagram again, not to check, but to mute him. No stories, no posts, no reminders. It felt like cutting an invisible thread that had kept me tied to him. The silence that followed was uncomfortable. I kept reaching for my phone like a reflex. My thumb hovered over the search bar, but I stopped myself each time. Every small victory felt like reclaiming a piece of my peace. Instead of stalking, I started walking, literally. I began evening runs along the River Thames. I watched sunsets, breathed in the cold London air, and reminded myself that there was still life beyond the heartbreak, beyond the phone screen. A week later, Hannah texted me, "Still off his page?" I smiled and typed back, "Day 7 and counting." She sent a heart emoji. For the first time in weeks, I smiled back. Not because someone else made me happy, but because I was starting to make myself happy again. It wasn't easy, but it felt real. I finally understood what Hannah meant when she said, "Healing doesn't mean you stop missing them. It means they stop controlling you." She was right. Even now, I won't pretend that I'm completely over him. There are still nights when I miss him, and moments when I think about checking again. But I've learned something important. Social media is a lie. It doesn't show sleepless nights, regrets, or the loneliness that hides behind those perfect smiles. People post what they want the world to see, not what they truly feel. Maybe he's happy, maybe he's not. But that's no longer my story to watch. My story is still being written, one peaceful day at a time. I've learned that real closure doesn't come from seeing your ex move on. It comes from no longer needing to see it at all. Peace isn't found in knowing how they're doing. It's found in realizing you don't care anymore. In my journal, I wrote, "Healing starts when you stop waiting for them to miss you and start missing yourself instead." And that's exactly what I'm learning to do, slowly, beautifully. Healing isn't loud. It doesn't arrive in big, dramatic moments. It's quiet, like waking up one morning and realizing the first thing you thought about wasn't him. That morning came unexpectedly. I brewed coffee, opened my curtains, and instead of scrolling through Instagram, I played soft music. For the first time in months, I didn't feel that hollow ache inside my chest. I just felt okay. Not happy yet, but okay. And that was progress. I began replacing old habits with new ones. Every time I wanted to check his profile, I picked up a book instead. My therapist once told me, "You can't delete love, Emma, but you can redirect it." So I started loving myself again, reading, journaling, even learning to cook something more complicated than pasta. My kitchen was messy, but it smelled of garlic, hope, and small beginnings. I was slowly building a life that didn't revolve around someone else. Weeks passed, and I noticed how memories began losing their sharp edges. The places we used to go didn't hurt as much anymore. I could walk past that cafe in Shoreditch without feeling the world crumble. The smell of coffee now reminded me of calm mornings instead of heartbreak. Healing wasn't forgetting him. It was remembering without falling apart. It was realizing that I could still love the memory, but not need the person. One Sunday, Hannah dragged me to a little art gallery near Camden. "You need new colors in your life," she said. I laughed, but she was right. The gallery smelled like fresh paint and old wood floors. I stood before a painting of a woman standing in the rain. She looked fragile, yet fierce. I felt an odd connection to her. In her eyes, I saw my own reflection, someone learning how to survive softness in a hard world. That night, I sat by my window with my journal open. London's skyline twinkled faintly beneath a soft drizzle. I wrote, "I am healing." The words looked small, but they carried so much weight. I wasn't trying to convince myself anymore. I was stating a truth. Healing wasn't linear. Some days I missed him so much I could hardly breathe, but on others, I remembered how to smile without needing anyone's permission. A few days later, I saw his name pop up on my notifications. He'd liked one of my posts, a photo of me smiling by the river. My heart jumped. For a second, I froze. Was it curiosity? Regret? Maybe he missed me? But then I laughed softly. It didn't matter anymore. I didn't rush to check his profile. I didn't analyze his timing or likes. I simply put the phone down and returned to my book. That was when I realized I'd finally taken back my peace. Hannah called that weekend. "Guess who I saw at Covent Garden?" she teased. I knew who before she said it. "Tom," she continued. "He looked fine, I guess." I waited for the sting, but it didn't come. "Did he ask about me?" I asked gently. "No," she said. I smiled. "That's okay," I whispered. For the first time, it actually was. I didn't need to be missed anymore to feel valuable. My worth wasn't tied to his attention any longer. By mid-autumn, London turned golden. The leaves scattered across the pavements like confetti, and the air smelled of rain and nostalgia. I walked through Hyde Park alone, headphones in, watching couples laugh on benches. But instead of sadness, I felt gratitude. I survived something I once thought would destroy me. I was still here, breathing, walking, feeling. And for the first time, being alone didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. That evening, I stopped by a small bookstore near Notting Hill. The owner, an elderly man with kind eyes, recommended a poetry book. "You look like someone who reads between the lines," he said. I smiled. As I flipped through the pages, a verse caught my eye. "You cannot heal in the same place you were broken." I closed the book and bought it instantly. It felt like it had been waiting for me all along. Later that night, I walked home under a misty drizzle, the city lights blurring softly. My coat was soaked, but I didn't care. The world felt alive again. Even the rain that once made me lonely now felt comforting. I stopped on Waterloo Bridge, watching the reflections shimmer on the Thames. I whispered to myself, "You're doing it, Emma. You're living again." And in that moment, I truly believed it. Days turned into weeks. My social media remained quiet. No more stalking, no more decoding. I started posting small pieces of my real life. A book I loved, my messy kitchen, a cloudy London sky. Nothing curated, nothing perfect. And people actually responded to the honesty. Maybe everyone's just tired of pretending. Maybe that's the real beauty of moving on, becoming real again. One morning, I received a message from Tom. Just one line. "Hope you're doing well." My heart didn't race this time. I smiled politely, typed, "I am, I hope you are too," and pressed send. No overthinking, no shaking hands, just calm. Afterward, I went out for coffee with Hannah and told her, "It feels weird, doesn't it? How something that once broke, you can suddenly feel neutral." She laughed. "That's growth, babe." That night, I lay in bed, listening to the faint hum of traffic outside. I thought about how love can change, How someone who once felt like your entire world can become just another chapter, not forgotten, but no longer defining you. I whispered a quiet thank you to the universe, not for losing him, but for finding myself again. Healing, I realized, wasn't about letting go of them. It was about returning to you. Before sleeping, I opened my journal again. On a fresh page, I wrote, I forgive us. Not just him, not just me, both of us. We did what we could with what we knew. Maybe that's all love ever is. A lesson disguised as loss. I closed my notebook, turned off the lamp, and smiled into the darkness. The silence didn't scare me anymore. It felt like home. Winter arrived quietly in London, painting the city in shades of gray and silver. I always thought this season would feel lonelier, but it didn't. The cold air on my cheeks felt fresh, almost cleansing. I started walking to work instead of taking the tube, just to feel alive. People rushed past me in heavy coats, and I realized something beautiful. I wasn't waiting for him anymore. I was simply moving, one step at a time, toward my own future. At work, things began to change too. I started volunteering for projects I once avoided, speaking up in meetings, laughing more with my colleagues. One afternoon, my manager said, "You seem lighter lately." I smiled and said, "Maybe I am." Healing had quietly transformed into confidence. It wasn't about pretending to be strong anymore. It was about finally becoming comfortable with who I was without him. One Friday, Hannah invited me to a small rooftop party. The view of the city lights was breathtaking. There was music, laughter, and people dancing under fairy lights. I stood by the railing, looking out at London, and thought about how far I'd come. A man approached me, kind smile, easy energy. We talked for hours, not about the past, but about music, travel, and favorite books. I didn't feel butterflies, just calm curiosity. It felt new, gentle. When I got home that night, I didn't rush to tell Hannah whether I liked him. Instead, I made myself tea and sat by the window. I realized something. I didn't need romance to feel complete anymore. The idea of being alone no longer scared me. I had learned to enjoy my own company, my own quiet. Maybe love will find me again someday, but even if it doesn't, I'll still be okay. That's the kind of peace I never thought I'd reach. A few weeks later, I got a letter from my mom inviting me home for Christmas in Bath. It had been years since I'd gone back. The train ride there felt like traveling into a softer version of time. Fields covered in frost, cottages glowing with warm lights. My mom hugged me tightly at the station saying, "You look happy, love." And for once, I didn't have to fake it. I truly was. That Christmas was simple: homemade pie, laughter, and quiet evenings by the fireplace. One night, my mom asked gently, "Do you still think about him?" I paused, then said, "Sometimes, but not with sadness." She smiled knowingly. "That's how you know you've healed." I stared at the fire crackling and thought, maybe healing isn't forgetting. It's remembering with softness instead of pain. Back in London, I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. I painted the river, the skyline, even the reflection of lights in the water. Art gave me a language my words couldn't. One evening, Hannah came over, looked at my canvas, and said, "Emma, that's beautiful." I smiled. "It's how healing feels," I said, because that's exactly what it was: messy, colorful, and finally mine. Weeks later, I found one of Tom's old hoodies in the back of my closet. For a moment, I froze, holding it in my hands. It smelled faintly like him, distant, faded. Instead of tears, I smiled softly. I folded it, placed it in a donation bag, and whispered, "Thank you." Not for the pain, but for the lesson. Every memory that once hurt now felt like proof of how far I'd come. That night, I walked along the Thames again. The air was cold, but the city shimmered with quiet beauty. I thought about the girl I was months ago, crying over someone's online photos, searching for meaning in pixels. I wanted to hug her and tell her, "You'll be okay." Because she was. I am. Healing didn't happen all at once, but step by step, heartbreak turned into freedom and silence turned into peace. As the year ended, I sat at my desk, journaling my final thoughts. "This year, I lost someone I loved," I wrote, "but I found myself again, stronger, softer, freer." I closed the notebook and exhaled. Maybe one day I'll fall in love again, maybe not, but either way, I'll never lose myself trying to keep someone else, because I've learned the only person worth chasing is the one you're becoming. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my apartment. I made coffee, turned on music, and opened the window. The city outside was loud and alive, buses, laughter, life. I smiled, feeling the rhythm of it all. The past didn't disappear, it just stopped defining me. I wasn't the girl refreshing someone's page anymore. I was the woman creating her own story. One sunrise, one heartbeat, one new beginning at a time.